This is my Laine of the Copenhagen Voice at a meeting about integration of Muslims into Denmark. With me is Jørgen Nielsen. You've been the director of the Danish Institute in Damascus for many years. You're now doing what?
I was in Damascus for 2 years after having spent many years in Birmingham, Britain. I've now been 2 years in Copenhagen as a professor of Islamic Studies in the Faculty of Theology, leading a centre for the study of European Islamic thought.
There have been a number of reports about integration in Denmark and in other countries. Have we learned anything from them here?
Let me put it positively. We're beginning to learn.
We're beginning to learn.
Yeah. Denmark got into this whole process, I think, comparatively late, especially compared to Britain and France. Partly because the immigration experience was later than in those two countries, and also because it took the public sector, the organizations and government, longer to realize that they had to change their ways.
And are they changing their ways, or how far they've
got
along the path?
I mean, they're certainly changing their ways, but it's a struggle. There are forces, peoples, parties, organizations, individuals who are fighting every inch of the way to prevent change, who fear change, who fear the new. And in a country which is experiencing globalization on a massive scale, as a small country in the European scene, and an even smaller country on the world scene, this change, which is perceived as coming from outside, is threatening, and the Muslim issue becomes, in many ways, a symbol of all of these other bigger threats, as they see it. And so, I mean, there are challenges with immigration, integration, ethnic minorities, kids growing up, and so on and so forth, getting used to Denmark being more than just a one-religion country. But the focus on Islam and Muslims is exaggerated. It actually has to carry the weight of all these other fears, I think.
Having lived in the UK, having looked at the UK's immigration aspects, and much of the UK's immigration is based on the old colonies.
Yeah.
It's still not without problems.
Of course not. I mean, you get a significant population movement. It's not without problems. I mean, we had during the period of industrialization, we had similar experience of great population movements, in this case from the countryside into the cities, and we know from our history that it gave problems, but there were problems that were surmounted over a couple of generations by political adaptations and social, cultural adaptations and so on. And I think the same will take place here. The one advantage that Denmark has, I think, compared to Britain, is that it's small. Here it is an advantage.
It's a smaller problem.
In quality, it's not a smaller problem. In some ways, in quality, it's a bigger problem, because Denmark is a very monocultural country, whereas Britain is a multicultural country in its essence. And it has the recent colonial experience, you should say. Denmark doesn't. But because Denmark is such a small country, experiences that are made in one place very quickly can be transferred to other places in the country. Whereas in Britain, experiences made in one area take an enormously long time to infiltrate into other areas. It's much more complex processes in Britain. In Denmark, it's comparatively simple. I think, personally, that the responses to the challenge, the adaptation, will actually go faster here. Although briefly more painfully, will actually go faster here than in Britain.
It's a question of time.
It's a question of time. It's a question of constructive goodwill. And in one sense, the debate this evening was about that, because if one leaves the field, the public field, to those who are resisting change, then change will be resisted. If people who want to support the change, want to work with the change, they have to step out publicly and move the debate forward.
So what you're saying is the progressive people have to make their points of view known.
They have to make their voices heard. Because after all, ultimately, we're all voters, and sooner or later the political parties will have to listen to the vote. And in certain, as we've seen in Britain, in certain parts of the country, in certain constituencies, in certain towns, the Muslims are part of the vote, and parties will have to listen to the Muslim party. And I think that's we're beginning to move into that phase here.
Denmark.
Yeah.
Jørgen Nielsen, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.